Hello there, everyone. If you're watching this video, then you are part of the TTOR army, an army that is building itself up one subscriber at a time. And before we get into the hot topic of the day, I got to let you guys know something that's very important. So recently, I launched my own video sharing site, my own YouTube alternative called Quarter. Quarter is an open source video sharing site based on the A Video project, and as you can see, it looks really nice as far as user interface goes. Also, it's very feature rich. You have full 1080p HD uploads, you have live streaming, you have free restreaming, you have public playlists. You can also create Google Hangout type chat rooms thanks to the Jitsi Meet technology. And you can not only do video chats on Quarter, you can also live stream to your channel from these chat rooms. So yes, there's a lot of features and functionality that make Quarter very fun and easy to use, and also just plain cool. So if you want to use an alternative to YouTube that actually champions freedom of speech in deed as well as word, and you want something that is very functional and feature rich for content creators, well, then I would encourage you to create an account on Quarter, join today, and if you're a creator, start uploading your content to Quarter, and we can create a whole new ecosystem of videos that is safe from censorship, unlike the one on YouTube. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get to the main event. Early yesterday morning, a very important Supreme Court decision was announced. And as you can see from this OAN article, Roe v. Wade overturned after 49 years. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Roe v. Wade, the sacred cow of the far-left Democrats, and tends to be the sacred cow of Democrats in general, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. On the Biden administration's watch, no less. This is something that the Democrats said was going to happen if evil Orange Man's administration was in power, but their people are in power, and it happened. Very funny how life works. But let's read the article. There is developing news out of the Supreme Court, which has just announced its decision in the case of Dobbs versus Jackson, officially overturning the half-century precedent Roe v. Wade. That vote came down Friday morning in a 6-3 decision. This landmark case challenged the constitutionality of a 2018 Mississippi state law that bans most abortion operations after the first 15 weeks of pregnancy. This decision came after Politico published a leaked draft opinion last month, which indicated the Supreme Court was set to overturn Roe v. Wade, the 1973 case that established a federal right to an abortion. Now, in a post-Roe America, states will be free to set their own abortion standards, and over a dozen states will immediately ban the procedure outright. Tensions were high outside the Supreme Court ahead of the decision, with protesters on both sides of the argument battling. Police officers formed a wall with bicycles and motorcycles in an attempt to calm tensions outside. And we see here a tweet that says, pro-abortion activists chant, "Pro-life is a lie. They don't care if children die," in the face of pro-life protesters outside SCOTUS. Now, I'd like to respond to this and point out, well, if it's a lie that we don't care about children, then I'm confused, because you see, if we believe that abortion is child murder, which it is, and we're trying to stop child murder from happening by making abortion illegal, wouldn't that prove that we actually do care about children dying? We care about them so much from them dying that we actually don't want them to be murdered while they're inside their mother's womb? I mean, getting abortions banned, I think, proves that pro-life people care about children dying. So, yeah, this chant by pro-abortion activists is completely nonsensical. At least to me, and I think at least to most people who actually care about unborn children. The article concludes by saying, with abortion protections ending following the High Court's decision, 13 states are set to move forward with restrictions that they prepared ahead of this moment. So, Roe v. Wade has been overturned. Lefties and Democrats don't like it. But you may be thinking to yourself at this point, oh no, Roe v. Wade being overturned is horrible. That means no more abortions for anyone who wants them. Well, that's actually not true. What Roe v. Wade being overturned did is it turned abortion from a federal matter to a state's matter. So now individual states can decide whether or not they want to allow abortions to occur and under what conditions and circumstances. So, an excellent article that I found that basically explains what the abortion situation is state by state in the US is this one by the Washington Examiner called Where Every State Stands on Abortion in Wake of Roe Being Overturned. The article says, the Supreme Court's decision to overturn Roe v. Wade paves the way for at least half of the 50 states in the country to ramp up restrictions or outright ban abortion. 13 have trigger laws for after the final ruling was made. Meanwhile, leaders in other states, those mainly led by Democrats, have pledged to become sanctuaries. Here are the highlights of where all 50 states stand right now on abortion. So, in a conservative state like Alabama, it says, in 2019, Alabama passed the Human Life Protection Act, which categorizes the unborn as persons and makes it a felony for doctors to perform most abortions, except in instances of a health risk to the mother. The measure was blocked by a federal court for defying the precedents first established in Roe. Well, now that Roe v. Wade has been overturned, that Alabama law is going to pass, and it's going to make it a felony for most abortions to be performed in the state of Alabama. Well, what about a state like California, which is as blue as it gets and is as Democrat-controlled as it gets? When the Supreme Court's draft opinion leaked, California lawmakers began pushing for an amendment in the state's constitution enshrining a woman's right to an abortion in the Golden State. With a solid blue legislature, the state is poised to preserve abortion access. And I have no doubt whatsoever about that. California is definitely going to be one of those states where abortions is not going to be restricted in any way, shape, or form. What about a state like Colorado that's also controlled by Democrats? In April 2022, the Centennial State enacted the Reproductive Health Equity Act, guaranteeing women the right to an abortion within the state and barring public entities from infringing upon that right. Same thing with Connecticut and Delaware. And then basically, if you go down the list, you'll see that it's pretty much like the beginning of the article said. Democrat-controlled states, they're not going to restrict abortions at all. Republican-controlled states will either restrict abortions heavily or outright ban them. What about my state, Oregon, the state that I live in and have lived in my whole life? In 2017, the state codified abortion protections within the Reproductive Health Equity Act of 2017. Democrats have control of the state legislature and governor's office. Governor Kate Brown pledged to preserve abortion rights in a post-Roe world. The state allows a woman to obtain an abortion at any stage of pregnancy, according to the Guttmacher Institute. So Oregon is also one of those states that's as blue as it gets. It's been Democrat-controlled for a long time. Don't see that happening anytime soon. And abortions are codified into state law as far as your ability to get one. And you can get one at any stage of pregnancy, basically up till birth, if not after birth as well. So if you're one of those people that's pro-abortion and you live in Oregon, well, don't worry about Oregon doing any kind of changes as far as abortion access goes. You're going to get to murder your babies whenever you want, pretty much, in the state of Oregon, even after Roe v. Wade got overturned. So now that we know that Roe v. Wade has been overturned and we know where all the states stand in terms of abortion access and in the aftermath of Roe v. Wade being overturned, what about my actual position on abortion? Where do I actually stand on the whole thing? Well, it's pretty obvious to anyone who's been following me for a while that I believe abortion is legalized child murder. And biblically speaking, I know that killing a child in the womb is the same as killing an adult outside the womb, or killing anyone outside the womb. How do we know this? Well, biblically speaking, let's look at a couple of passages. In Jeremiah 1:5, we read the following. Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you. Before you were born, I set you apart. I appointed you as a prophet to the nations. So this is God talking to the prophet Jeremiah, and he tells Jeremiah that before he formed Jeremiah in his mother's womb, he knew Jeremiah. Before Jeremiah was born, God set him apart and appointed him as a prophet to the nations. So God not only knew Jeremiah before he was even formed in his mother's womb and before he was born, he also knew before all of that what Jeremiah's life was going to be like. Sounds like Jeremiah was a person at conception and all the way through to the point where he was born. Isaiah 49, 1 through 4, we read, "Listen to me, you islands. Hear this, you distant nations. Before I was born, the Lord called me. From my mother's womb, he has spoken my name. He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand, he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. He said to me, 'You are my servant Israel, in whom I will display my splendor.' But I said, 'I have labored in vain. I have spent my strength for nothing at all. Yet what is due me is in the Lord's hand, and my reward is with my God.'" So according to this passage in Isaiah, before Isaiah was born, before he was formed inside his mother's womb, God not only knew him, but knew that he was going to be a prophet speaking the Lord's will to the people and providing the revelations from the Lord that he gave us. So it sounds to me once again like Isaiah was a person from conception onwards, because God not only knew him before he was born and before he was formed in his mother's womb, he also knew what his life was going to be. So according to the Bible, people are persons from conception onward because God knows each of us and what our lives are going to be before we've even formed in our mother's womb and before we're born. Well, here's where things get interesting. Leviticus 24, 17 through 22 says, "Anyone who takes the life of a human being is to be put to death. Anyone who takes the life of someone's animal must make restitution, life for life. Anyone who injures their neighbor is to be injured in the same manner. Fracture for fracture, eye for eye, tooth for tooth. The one who has inflicted the injury must suffer the same injury. Whoever kills an animal must make restitution, but whoever kills a human being is to be put to death. You are to have the same law for the foreigner and the native born. I am the Lord your God." So according to the Torah, if you murder someone, you get put to death. Life for life, after all. If you murder someone, you have forfeited your life and you deserve to die, according to God's law. Well, in light of that, let's see what happens in Exodus 21, 22 through 25. It says, "If people are fighting and hit a pregnant woman and she gives birth prematurely but there is no serious injury, the offender must be fined whatever the woman's husband demands and the court allows. But if there is serious injury, you are to take life for life, eye for eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot, burn for burn, wound for wound, and bruise for bruise." And notice in the footnote it says for Exodus 21:22, where the letter A is next to gives birth prematurely, it says, or she has a miscarriage. In other words, if you strike a pregnant woman and the baby in her womb dies as a result, you get put to death according to Torah law. So in other words, the legal punishment for killing or injuring an adult or anyone who is born outside the womb is the same punishment you get when you injure or kill someone inside the womb. So according to God's written word, murdering a child in the womb is murder, period. Whether you're in the womb or outside the womb, if you kill someone, you're guilty of murder and you deserve to die, and death was the civil punishment in the Torah law for someone who not only murdered a person outside the womb, but killed a person inside the womb. And to all you Democrats and lefties and atheists out there who think that the law outlined here in Exodus 21, 22 through 25 is barbaric, I would like to remind you right now that today in this country, no matter which state you're in pretty much, if you murder a pregnant woman, you will actually get charged with a double murder, with the second count of murder being applied to the unborn child that you killed. You don't believe me, huh? Well, let's look at some contemporary examples. We have here an article from Reg Memphis, which is a local affiliate for CBS in Memphis, Tennessee. The article is titled, "Man Charged with Double Murder for Killing Pregnant Woman, Police Say." Memphis police arrested a man Tuesday who is accused of shooting and killing his pregnant girlfriend. The shooting happened on December 3rd, 2021 on the 3800 block off Ford Road in southwest Memphis. According to court documents, a woman called MPD to tell them that her child's father, Nakia Jackson, was responsible for the shooting of Ashanti Smith. And so you can read the whole sad story here. But if you skip down to the article, it says here that Jackson has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. 1 count is for Smith. The other is for her unborn baby she was carrying, police said. So a man in Memphis, Tennessee, in January of 2022, so 5 months ago, a man in Memphis, Tennessee was charged with double murder. He murdered a pregnant woman, and one charge was for murdering the woman, and the other murder charge was for the baby in her womb that he killed. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, that's Memphis, Tennessee, Justin, and if you go to your Washington Examiner article, you'll see that Tennessee is one of the states that supports restricting abortion access. Well, hold on to your hat then, because we got a similar story that took place in California not very long ago. Here we have an article from KCRA3, which is an NBC affiliate in California, and the article is titled, "Turlock PD, Man Arrested in Connection with Death of Pregnant Woman, Unborn Child. Suspect was apprehended in Mexico, brought back to U.S." Turlock police have a suspect in custody for a double homicide that took place last year, officials said Thursday. On August 4th, 2020, Turlock police responded to a call of an aggravated assault on the 500 block of 20th Century Boulevard. When officers arrived, they located Amethyst Cortez, 27 of Goosting. Police said officers found Cortez suffering from gunshot wounds. Despite medical treatment, both Cortez and her unborn baby died. Early in the investigation, police identified the suspect as Robert Penaloza Jr., 29, of Turlock. Investigators soon learned that Penaloza fled the area and was believed to be in Mexico. An arrest warrant was issued for Penaloza on January 19th. Mexican law enforcement officials later notified Turlock police that Penaloza had been arrested. He was then turned over to the U.S. Marshals and returned to the United States. Penaloza was booked in the Stanislaus County Jail and has been charged with 2 counts of murder, among other charges. Wait a minute. 2 counts of murder? All he did was kill a pregnant woman. Shouldn't there be only 1 count of murder? No, he got charged with 2 counts of murder. 1 murder count was for killing the pregnant woman, and the other murder count was for murdering the baby that was in her womb. So even in deep blue states like California that in no way, shape, or form will restrict access to abortion for people, in California, if you murder a pregnant woman, you will get charged with double murder, with one of the murder counts being for the unborn child that you killed when you killed the pregnant woman. So in California, we have this magical situation, a situation that exists in other deep blue states that have similar laws. In California and other deep blue states, if you murder a pregnant woman and kill the unborn child in the process, you will actually get charged with double murder. 1 murder count for the pregnant woman, the other murder count for the unborn child that was in her womb. So in California and other deep blue states with similar laws, unborn children are actually human beings and persons when they are outside of an abortion clinic. But in those same states, if that unborn child is taken to an abortion clinic or other places that performs abortions, and a doctor murders the child in the womb, well then that child magically becomes a non-human, non-person once the pregnant mother sets foot in an abortion clinic or other places that allow abortions to be performed, and it's not murder when that unborn child is murdered by a doctor. So in places like California, you actually have the law teaching contradictory things about unborn children. Basically, an unborn child is a human person until they get inside an abortion clinic or similar place and the mother decides that, hey, I want this child killed. Well, then a doctor can murder this child in this clinic or whatever. But because it's inside an abortion clinic or whatever, the child that's in the mother's womb and hasn't been born yet is magically transformed into a non human, non person, and that doctor will not get charged with murder. So, murdering an unborn child is either a murder charge or it's a completely legal thing to do. And what determines which one is which is whether or not the unborn child was murdered inside an abortion clinic or not. If the unborn child was murdered outside of an abortion clinic, well, then that unborn child is a human person and you're going to get charged with murdering it. But if that unborn child was murdered inside an abortion clinic by a doctor, well then, that wasn't a human person that you murdered, therefore it's okay. Abortion, therefore, is nothing more than a legal loophole that allows you to get away with murdering children, something that in any other circumstance, you'd be brought up on murder charges for doing. I think I have effectively at this point proved my case that for the most part, abortions are nothing more than legal loopholes that allow you to get away with child murder. So I think the only appropriate action as far as abortions go in the United States of America is to outright ban abortions in all 50 states. Only 2% of the abortions that are performed in the United States of America fall under the rare and special exception category that Democrats are always using to try and justify keeping abortion on demand illegal. 98% of abortions don't fall into that category. They fall into the murdering unborn children category because, well, they're an inconvenience to you in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, I am all for abortion being banned countrywide.